Before we start, make sure to like the video and subscribe if you enjoy real-life stories like this. It really helps the channel grow. And if you've ever dealt with toxic family members or betrayal, let me know in the comments, because this one gets intense. All right, here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old guy, and my name's Daniel. For the past 5 years, I've owned a plumbing business. Not I work for one, I mean I actually own it. The problem is, nobody really knows that. Not my neighbors, not my in-laws, and apparently not even my own wife. I met my wife Carla 3 years ago. She's 26, an accountant, very smart, very organized, always put together. We met at a small cafe, and she told me she liked how simple and grounded I was. For a while, things were really good. We got married after a year and moved into a modest house. Nothing fancy, just comfortable. I never felt the need to show off what I had, and I preferred living simply. I still drove my old pickup, still wore basic clothes, and still worked hands-on in the field. But then her mother got involved. Her name is Marites. She's 54, and from the very beginning, she didn't like me. Not in a subtle way either. She made it very clear. She'd say things like, "Carla studied so hard for this," or "You could have married someone better," and sometimes even, "A plumber is fine, but not as a husband." I stayed quiet every time. I didn't want to create conflict, and honestly, I didn't feel the need to prove anything. At first, Carla defended me. She would tell her mom to stop and stand up for me. But over time, that started to change. She stopped pushing back. Eventually, she just stayed quiet. And that silence started to feel louder than anything her mom ever said. About a year into our marriage, things began to shift. Carla became distant. She started coming home late more often. At first, it made sense. She's an accountant, and there are busy seasons with deadlines and reports. I trusted her, so I didn't question it. But then it became a pattern. Late nights turned into almost every night. Conversations got shorter. Affection faded. She started criticizing little things about me. My clothes, the way I looked after work, even comparing me to her co-workers' husbands. She would say things like, "Do you have anything that doesn't look like you came from a job site?" Or, "My co-workers' husbands dress better." And then she started mentioning her boss. His name was Victor. He was 38, a senior manager, well-dressed, confident, and clearly successful. Exactly the kind of man her mother always wanted for her. At first, I didn't think much of it. Until one night, around 11 p.m., she called me and said she'd be home late. Her voice sounded rushed. I said okay, but then I heard a man's voice in the background. It wasn't office noise. It sounded casual, like they were just talking and laughing. When I asked her about it, she said it was just her boss and that they were finishing reports together. Something didn't feel right, but I ignored it because I trusted her, or at least I wanted to. Over the next few weeks, things got worse. More late nights, more distance. So one night, I finally asked her directly if she was seeing someone else. She looked me straight in the eye and said no. No hesitation, no guilt, just confidence. Then she turned it around on me and asked why I was being insecure. And somehow I ended up apologizing. I convinced myself I was overthinking, that I was the problem. So I tried harder. I took her out more, helped more at home, tried to be better. Not because I had done anything wrong, but because I thought maybe I wasn't enough. But nothing changed. Then one day I came home early. She wasn't there, which wasn't unusual, but her laptop was open. I wasn't trying to snoop, but a message popped up from Victor. I only saw the preview, but it said, "Last night was amazing." I froze. I didn't open it. I didn't touch anything. I just stood there trying to convince myself there was another explanation, because the truth was something I wasn't ready to face. That night, I asked her again if there was anything going on, and again she denied it, calm and confident, like nothing was wrong. So again, I chose to believe her, until the day everything changed. I was at one of my properties, a small office space we were renovating. We had recently installed security cameras, and I was just reviewing footage. Then I saw something that caught my attention. A car I recognized immediately. It was Victor's. Then I saw Carla getting out of the passenger seat. She was laughing, smiling, more relaxed than I had seen her in months. They walked together into a nearby building. I checked the timestamp. It was during one of her late work nights. At that point, I already knew, but I needed confirmation, so I followed them. The building they entered was a hotel, not an office, not a meeting place. a hotel. I went inside and spoke to the front desk. I described them, and after a moment, the receptionist confirmed they had been there before. More than once. They were regulars. In that moment, everything inside me just went quiet. That night, I didn't yell or argue. I just waited. She came home around midnight, smiling, until she saw me. I asked her one question. "Are you still going to lie to me?" She froze, then said she didn't know what I was talking about. So I showed her everything. The footage, the timestamps. Her expression changed instantly. First, she denied it. Then she said it only happened once. Then she said I wouldn't understand. And finally, she said I never gave her the life she wanted. That was the moment everything clicked. She never really knew me. So I told her the truth. That I own the business, that everything I do is mine, that I chose to live simply. She didn't believe me at first. She laughed. So I showed her. Bank accounts, documents, contracts. And I watched her face change from disbelief to shock and then to regret. The next day, she told her mother. And for the first time ever, her mother treated me with respect. But it didn't matter anymore, because now I understood something clearly. They didn't disrespect me because of who I was. They disrespected me because of what they thought I was. And that's not something money can fix. I filed for divorce. She begged, cried, said it was a mistake, said she didn't know. Exactly, she didn't know. And that's the problem. Because she didn't cheat on a poor plumber. She cheated on her husband. And that's all that should have mattered. If someone only values you when they see your worth on paper, then they never valued you at all. And by the time she realized that, I was already gone. All right, here's part 2. If you thought everything ended after I confronted her, it didn't. That was just the beginning. The night I found out, something in me shut off. Not anger, not rage, just clarity. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't try to fix anything. I just started thinking ahead. Because once trust is gone like that, there's nothing left to argue about. The next morning, Carla barely spoke. She kept trying to approach me like she wanted to say something, but every time I looked at her, she stopped. I didn't ask questions anymore. I didn't need answers. I already had them. By noon, I called a lawyer, a very good one. Her name is Attorney Reyes. She's 41. Calm, precise, and the kind of person who doesn't waste words. I laid everything out. The cheating, the footage, the hotel confirmation, everything. She listened quietly, then asked me one question. "Do you want to reconcile or do you want to end this cleanly?" I didn't hesitate. "I want out." She nodded and said, "Then from this point forward, everything you do is strategy." That word stuck with me. Strategy. Once Carla realized I wasn't arguing, that I wasn't chasing her, that I wasn't trying to win her back, her behavior changed. Fast. She went from defensive to emotional. She cried. She apologized. She said it was a mistake. She said it didn't mean anything. She said she was confused. She said she felt pressured by her mother. But she never once said she betrayed me. Everything was about her feelings, her confusion, her situation, never what she actually did. 2 days later, her mother came over. But this time she wasn't rude and she was polite, careful. She said we should talk like adults. I let her speak. She said it was just a mistake, that these things happen in marriages, that I shouldn't throw everything away. And then she said something that made everything clear. "Carla didn't know your situation. If she knew, this wouldn't have happened." That was it. That was the moment everything clicked. They weren't sorry because of what she did. They were sorry because they misjudged me. Within a week, I filed the case. Everything was documented. The footage, the timestamps, the hotel records, even the messages that were later obtained legally. Clean evidence, undeniable. When Carla received the papers, that's when things escalated. Instead of accepting it, she went online. At first, it was vague posts. "Sometimes you try your best in a marriage, but it's never enough." Then it became more direct. "Emotional neglect is real. Some men only care about work." I stayed silent. I thought it would pass. It didn't. She built a full narrative. According to her, I was emotionally distant. I neglected her. I chose work over her. I made her feel alone. And people believed her. Friends, co-workers, even some extended family. They didn't know the full story. They didn't know about Victor. They didn't know about the hotel. They only saw someone expressing pain, and they supported her. Messages started coming in. Some were subtle, some weren't. Maybe you should hear her out. No one cheats without a reason. You must have done something? That one stuck with me. You must have done something. I didn't respond to any of it. Not once. My lawyer told me clearly that anything I say publicly could be used against me. So I stayed quiet. No posts, no replies, nothing. And to everyone watching, that silence looked like guilt. While all of that was happening online, in court it was completely different. Because in court, there are no opinions, only evidence. The first hearing came. Carla showed up confident, composed, like she believed her version of the story would hold. But the moment the evidence was presented, everything shifted. The timeline was laid out clearly, then the footage, then the hotel confirmations, then the messages, one by one. No emotion, just facts. You could feel the change in the room. Carla stopped making eye contact. Her lawyer started adjusting. They tried to argue emotional distress, neglect, lack of attention. They tried to explain her actions. But explanations don't erase repeated choices. They don't erase patterns. They don't erase proof. Then Victor got involved. He didn't want to be part of it, but he had to respond. And under pressure, his statements didn't match hers. Not even close. Where she said it happened once, he admitted it was ongoing. Where she said she was confused, he described consistency. That contradiction broke everything. After that, her defense shifted. It wasn't denial anymore. It became damage control. But by then, it didn't matter. Because once credibility is gone, everything else follows. Around the same time, things started changing online too. People began to question her story. Small details didn't add up. Some people knew about her boss. Others started connecting the dots. The support slowly faded. Comments changed. Doubt replaced sympathy. And eventually, people stopped engaging. Through all of this, I stayed the same. Quiet, focused. Not because I didn't feel anything, but because I understood something important. You don't win situations like this by arguing louder. You win them by being right and being patient. After months of proceedings, the decision came. The court ruled in my favor. Infidelity was established. Everything was finalized cleanly. No confusion, no debate, just facts. After that, Carla tried to reach out. Privately, she called, she messaged, she apologized again. This time it sounded more real, more grounded, but timing matters. And some realizations come too late. What happened wasn't just about cheating, it was about perception, about assumptions. They treated me based on what they thought I was. And when the truth came out, they changed. But by then, it didn't matter. Because respect that only exists after proof isn't real respect. If someone only values you when they see your worth on paper, then they never valued you at all. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't proving your side. It's staying silent, stepping back, and letting the truth handle everything for you. All right, this is part 3. I didn't expect there to be a part 3. After everything that happened, I thought that chapter of my life was just over. The divorce was finalized. The case was done. Everything was settled cleanly. On paper, I had won. But that's the thing people don't really talk about. Even when you win, you don't feel like you did. For a while, life just felt quiet, not peaceful, not painful, just quiet. The house felt different. Not empty exactly, just unfamiliar, like it used to belong to someone else. I kept myself busy. Work became my routine again. Early mornings, long days, constant movement, projects, expansions, new contracts. From the outside, everything looked like it was going well. The business was growing faster than ever. We expanded into 2 more areas, hired more people, started handling larger contracts. I even stopped doing as much field work myself. But I still showed up, still wore the same clothes, still drove the same truck, because that part of me never changed. The only thing that changed was how I saw people. I became more observant, more careful, not closed off, just aware. I stopped assuming people meant well and started paying attention to what they actually did. Months passed like that. No drama, no noise, just work and silence. Then one afternoon, something small happened, something that didn't seem important at the time, but it changed everything. I had a minor issue at one of our office spaces, accounting related. Nothing major, just something that needed reviewing. Normally, I would have handled it internally, but one of my managers suggested bringing in an external accountant to double-check things. So I agreed. That's how I met her. Her name is Elena. She's 27, also an accountant, but very different from Carla. You notice it immediately, not in how she dresses, not in how she talks, but in how she carries herself. Calm, direct, no unnecessary effort to impress anyone. When we first met, she didn't even know I was the owner. She assumed I was just part of the operations team, and I didn't correct her. Not intentionally, it just didn't come up. We went over the documents together. She pointed out a few inconsistencies, nothing serious, just things that could be improved. She explained everything clearly. No condescension, no attitude, just straightforward professional communication. At one point, I made a small mistake reading one of the reports, and I expected that look, the one I used to get, the subtle judgment, but she just corrected me. Simple, respectful, like it wasn't a big deal. That stood out to me more than anything. After the meeting, she packed up her things and said, "If you need anything else clarified, just let me know." No extra conversation, no trying to linger, just done. That was it. And for some reason, that stuck with me. Over the next few weeks, we worked together a few more times. Always professional, always consistent. No mixed signals, no unnecessary friendliness, just real. And that was new for me. One day after finishing a review, I asked if she wanted to grab coffee. Nothing serious, just a simple question. She paused for a second and then said, "Sure, as long as it's just coffee." I nodded. "That's all I'm asking." We went to a small place nearby, and for the first time in a long time, a conversation felt easy. No pressure, no expectations. We talked about work, life, nothing too deep, but nothing fake either. At some point, she asked what exactly I do in the company, and that's when I told her that I own it. I didn't make it a big reveal, just said it plainly. She looked at me for a second and then nodded. Okay. That was it. No surprise, no change in tone, no sudden shift in how she treated me. She just accepted it and kept talking like nothing changed. That was the moment I knew something was different, because she didn't care about the title. She cared about the person in front of her. After that, we started seeing each other more often. Still slowly, still carefully, not rushing into anything. We both had our own lives, our own routines. But there was consistency, respect, and something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Months passed, and eventually, things became official. No big announcement, no dramatic moment, just a mutual understanding. We were together, and this time, it felt right. There were no games, no comparisons, no pressure to be something I'm not. She never asked me to change how I dressed, never compared me to anyone else, never made me feel like I wasn't enough. She supported what I did, not because of the money, but because she respected the work. And that made all the difference. At some point, I asked her something I hadn't asked anyone before. Why me? She thought about it, then said something I'll never forget. Because you're consistent. You don't pretend. What I see is what I get. That answer stayed with me because it was simple, but real. A year later, everything changed again, but this time in a different way. She told me she was pregnant. I remember that moment clearly. Not shock, not panic, just stillness. Then something else. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Excitement. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that settles in slowly. We prepared together. Doctor visits, planning, adjusting routines. Everything felt stable. No chaos, no uncertainty, just steady movement forward. When our son was born, everything shifted again. But this time, it didn't break anything. It built something. Holding him for the first time, it puts things into perspective. All the noise from before, all the conflict, all the opinions, they just fade because suddenly what matters becomes very clear: responsibility, stability, presence. And I made a promise to myself in that moment that he would never have to question where he stands, that he would grow up seeing what respect looks like, not just hearing about it, seeing it every day. Now life is different, not perfect, but real. The business is still growing, but it's no longer the center of everything. It's just part of it. Home feels like home again, not because of the space, but because of who's in it. And sometimes I think back to everything that happened, not with anger, not even with regret, just understanding. Because if none of that happened, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have this life, this peace, this family. Some endings don't feel fair when they happen, but they make sense later. And sometimes losing the wrong person is exactly what makes room for the right one. That's where I am now. Not trying to prove anything, not trying to be seen a certain way,